Hi guys, hope you're well. Today's video is going to be a wrap up of the books that I read during April, May and June. I'm also going to be talking about the books that I want to read over the next 3 months as well. The last time I did one of these videos I spoke about the books that I read in January, February and March, and I had 27 books to talk about then. This time I have over 50 books to talk about, so without further ado, let's get started. Actually, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of things. The first thing is that I'm not going to be talking about many of these books in a lot of detail, mainly because I will be sitting here forever and this video will be very, very long. If you want to know anything else about these books and what I thought of them, I will leave a link to my Goodreads account down below so you can go and have a look at all of my reviews on there. Or you can comment in the comment section down below and I will do my best to get back to you and chat with you about any of the books that you want to know about. I'm also going to quickly mention that I read The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli at the end of March, but I didn't actually start it until after I recorded my previous video, so I didn't even mention that I was going to be reading it or that I was currently reading it, but I did really enjoy that and I gave it 5 stars. Also, I was currently reading Salt to the Sea when I recorded my last video, and I actually did finish that in March as well, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. It was an absolutely incredible book, one I would recommend to everyone, and I gave it 5 stars. Then I decided to start a new series, so I read Did I Mention I Love You, and I loved this book. I read it really quickly and I couldn't wait to get my hands on the second book. I gave it 5 stars as well. Then I was sent a book through NetGalley, and that was Lost for Words, and I really enjoyed this book. I love that it's centred around a bookshop, and I gave this 4 stars. Then I read My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick, and I absolutely adored this book. I read it in 2 days, I think. I read it very quickly, I know that. And it's a perfect summer read. I'd definitely recommend it if you're looking for a book to read this summer, and I gave it 5 stars as well. Then I picked up the first book in another series, and that was Songs About a Girl by Chris Russell. I absolutely adored this book. I would definitely recommend it if you like books with music in it. It focuses around a band. Fans of One Direction maybe would like it, that kind of thing. But I really, really enjoyed this book. The second book comes out soon, and I can't wait to read that one as well. I gave it 5 stars. Next was another book that I was sent through NetGalley, and that was Mary Poser. I loved that it was set in Nashville. I love the cultural differences in this book and how they came together, and it was just a lovely book to read with the romance as well. I gave it 4 stars. Then I picked up Perfect by Cecilia Ahern. Cecilia is my favourite author, if you don't already know, and this is part of her YA duology. Flawed was the first one and this is the second one. This was an absolutely brilliant ending to the story, and I gave this 5 stars. Then I read A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas. If you've watched any of the videos on my channel before, you'll already know how much I love these. If you haven't, then I will direct you to the description box where I will leave a link for my review for all 3 books that are in this series so far. Absolutely amazing. Even if you don't normally like fantasy books, I would recommend these because I didn't think I was going to like fantasy books, and these are incredible. I gave it 5 stars. Then I got a book out of the library, which was The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness, and I did not like this book. I really wanted to. It's being made into a film, so I wanted to read the book before the film came out. I don't even think they've started filming yet, but I was really interested in it, but I just didn't like it, I'm afraid, and I only gave it 2 stars. Next, I read It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and this is definitely one of my favourite books that I've read so far this year. I've read over 80 books this year so far already, and this is definitely up there. It's absolutely incredible. It does deal with domestic violence, so just be warned if you don't like that kind of book normally. But this was incredibly written. I cried and cried so much when I finished this book, and actually I thought this was going to put me into a reading slump because of how much I felt towards this book, but it was incredible and I gave it 5 stars. Then I read The Perils of a Literary Life by Jennifer Weeks, and I really thought I was going to enjoy this book a lot more than I actually did. It was still good, but it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, so I gave it 3 stars. Then I decided, whilst in the middle of reading 3 other series, what would be a better idea than starting a new one, so I started the Selection series by Kira Cass. I loved this book. I thought it was absolutely amazing, the perfect first book for a series, and I was desperate to read the rest of them, so I requested them all into the library straight away afterwards. I gave this 5 stars. Then I picked up Just One Year by Gail Forman from the library because I read Just One Day last year and really enjoyed it, but unfortunately Just One Year did not live up to my expectations. I didn't enjoy it at all really, and I kind of found myself just wanting it to end. I only gave it 2 stars. Then I read History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera, and I absolutely adored this book. It was written so well. I love the differences between writing in the present time and the past, which was labelled as history as the chapter headings. It was a brilliant story. I loved the layout, I loved the characters, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I decided after reading those first books in all of those series that I'd started that I would go on to the second book in those series, and the first one I read was Did I Mention I Need You? This was a great continuation of the first book, Did I Mention I Love You? I loved the New York setting and I gave it 5 stars. Even though I didn't like The Knife of Never Letting Go, I decided to carry on with the series, so I read The Ask and the Answer, and unfortunately it didn't get any better for me. I was recommended that I carry on with the series because it gets better, but I still didn't enjoy this, I'm afraid, and I only gave it 2 stars as well. Then I read A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas, the second book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series, and I absolutely love this book. This is definitely my favourite book of the year so far. The second book is my favourite out of the 3, but I've definitely got to say that this book is my favourite that I've read so far this year, and that's out of 80 books. So definitely recommend this series, definitely recommend you continue it on even if you're not sure about the first one, because it's even better in the second book. Obviously I gave this 5 stars. Next I read The Opposite of You by Lou Morgan, which was another book that was sent to me through NetGalley, and this was one that I read really quickly. It seemed to be a really short book. It's hard to tell when you don't have a physical copy of it, but it seemed to be really short. I read it all in one day, I believe, and I liked it but I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars. Then I read Out of Heart, and I have already read this. I read this and I mentioned it in my previous video when I did a wrap up. But I read it again because right at the very end of March I joined a book group at Foyle's bookstore, and this was the first book that we read as a group, and although I'd already read it, I decided that I was going to read it again anyway, just so it was clear in my mind what I thought of it. And after reading it a second time, I definitely didn't like it, and I actually think I ended up lowering my rating. I think I lowered it to 2 stars. Then I read Traitor to the Throne, which is the second book after Rebel of the Sands, and I absolutely adored this book. I didn't love it as much as Rebel of the Sands. I gave this one 4 stars. Then after telling myself that I wasn't going to be starting another series until I'd finished the ones I was currently reading, I decided to start another one, and I picked up City of Bones from the Mortal Instruments series. This was recommended to me by a friend, and I really didn't think I was going to enjoy this as much as I did, but I did really like it. Not my favourite, I gave it 4 stars. Next I picked up The Elite, which is the second book in the Selection series by Kira Cass, and I absolutely loved this book. I think I actually liked this one better than the first one just because it got into the story a little bit more, but it's a brilliant series and I can't wait to finish it. I gave this book 5 stars. Then A Court of Wings and Ruin was released, and I didn't have a very long wait for this compared to a lot of people. All those people that read A Court of Mist and Fury when it first came out and then had to wait for this, I don't know how you did it because I really struggled and I only had about 6 weeks. So this came out, absolutely loved it. If you want to hear more about this series, again, go to the description box and I will leave a link so you can go and watch my review of all 3 books in this series. I gave this 5 stars. Then I read another book that I was sent through NetGalley, and that was The Way Back Home, and I thought this sounded absolutely amazing and it was going to be one of my favourite books that I'd read so far this year, but it wasn't that it was disappointing, I just didn't like it as much as I really wanted to and really thought I was going to, so I only gave this one 3 stars. Then I read One Italian Summer, and part of me kind of wishes that I'd saved this to read in the height of summer rather than back at the beginning of May when I did read it, but I loved it all the same. It's not a very long book at all, it's quite short, and I did fly through this really quickly again, but it's a lovely story. Obviously it's set in Italy and it's just a lovely summer read. I gave this 4 stars. Then I read City of Ashes, which is the second book in the Mortal Instruments series, and this one again was really good. Not my favourite series that I've been reading, but still really liked it and I gave it 4 stars. Next is a book that I already mentioned in my previous video and is one that I picked up from the library, and that is Whisper to Me by Nick Lake, and this is another book that I really thought I was going to enjoy and could possibly be one of my favourites. I absolutely adored the cover, but unfortunately the book was not as amazing as I really hoped it would be, so I gave it 3 stars. Next I decided to pick up Girl Online by Zoe Sugg. Most of you will know who Zoella is, but most people are also surprised to hear that I haven't actually read any of her books, considering how much I like watching her videos and how much I've enjoyed her W.H. Smith Zoella book clubs. But I hadn't read any of her books, so I decided to pick up the first one, and I did really like it. It was a nice easy read and I gave it 4 stars. Then I picked up another book from the library, which was Heartless by Marissa Meyer, and I absolutely loved this book and how it was set in the world of Alice in Wonderland, and it was all based around the Queen of Hearts. It was a brilliant book and I gave it 4 stars. Then I picked up another book from the library, which was Because You'll Never Meet Me by Leah Thomas, and I did not enjoy this book. I don't really have that much to say about it, but I really didn't like this one that much and I gave it 2 stars. Then I read book 3 in the Mortal Instruments series, which is City of Glass, and I really liked this one. It seemed like a nice sort of conclusion to the first 2 books, and a lot of things were wrapped up and sort of concluded in this book. I really liked it and I gave it 4 stars as well. Then I was sent Like Other Girls by Claire Hennessy by Readers First, and I liked this book but I didn't love it. It was really good storyline, but I don't know, I kind of expected something more from it. I'm not quite sure what though, but I gave it 3 stars. After reading the first 2 books, I decided to finish off Patrick Ness's trilogy by reading Monsters of Men, but unfortunately I still didn't really like this book either. It just wasn't a series that worked for me, so I gave this one 2 stars as well. Next is another book that I was sent through NetGalley that I really enjoyed, and that was One of Us is Lying. It was a really good story and I love how it was told from different perspectives. I gave this one 4 stars. The next book we read for the Foils book club that I go to is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is a really important book that I suggest everyone picks up and reads. It's not a nice book to read, which is kind of why I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. But it's so important that I think everyone reads this. It's just one of those messages that I think needs to get across to everyone, and I can see this book being absolutely huge for years to come. It's going to be one of those iconic books, I think. Next I read Unconventional, and I really enjoyed this book. It's definitely up there with one of my favourites of the year so far, again, even though it's very different to some of my other favourites. But it was just a lovely book to read and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. Then I finally finished a trilogy. I read Did I Mention I Need You, and I absolutely loved this book as well. It was the perfect ending to the trilogy, and it's definitely a trilogy that I want to read again in the future, and I gave this one 5 stars as well. Next I read A Quiet Kind of Thunder, and I read this as part of my 24-hour readathon, which I will be doing again in the coming months, so keep your eyes out for that if it's anything you're interested in hearing about. But I did a 24-hour readathon and I filmed it all, so I will leave the video in the description box for you if you want to go and watch that. But I absolutely loved this book. I read it really quickly. This is the one that I started at midnight when I was doing the 24-hour readathon, and I gave it 5 stars. Next I read Love in Row 27, and I liked the idea of this book from the second I read the description. I just loved the matchmaking aspect of it. I gave this book 3 stars. Then I read City of Fallen Angels, the 4th book in the Mortal Instruments series, and I did not like this one anywhere near as much as the first 3. I definitely could have done without reading this one and just sticking with the first 3, but it's a series and I don't want to just stop halfway through it, so I'm going to carry on reading the other ones as well, but I gave this one 3 stars. Then I read The Weight of Him by Ethel Rowan, and I really liked the idea of this book and I thought it was going to show this man's journey really well, but I just didn't gel with this book. It wasn't that it was a bad book, I just didn't click with it. Maybe I wasn't reading it at the right time, so maybe I'll reread it again in the future, but this time I read it and I only gave it 2 stars. Then I started another series because apparently that's just what I do now. I just pick up the first book in a new series whilst I'm still reading like 4. So I started the Throne of Glass series. So I started Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. Obviously I loved the Court of Thorns and Roses series, so I decided to try these ones. And it didn't disappoint. I gave the first book in the series 5 stars. As soon as I had finished Throne of Glass, I picked up Crown of Midnight by Sarah J Maas, the 2nd book in the Throne of Glass series, and I loved this one just as much. A lot of people say that they don't like this one as much, from what I've read and from what I've heard from the people that have read them that I know, but I really enjoyed it. I loved the story, and again I gave this one 5 stars as well. Next I finally got round to reading book 3 in the Selection series. I read The One by Kira Cass, and again absolutely loved it. I love this series and this was the perfect ending to America and Maxon's story. I gave it 5 stars. Then I went straight back to Sarah J Maas and picked up Heir of Fire, the 3rd book in the Throne of Glass series, and I really loved this one as well. Not as much as the previous 2, but I did still really love it, and I loved the character of Ronan and how he was introduced into it as well. I gave it 5 stars. Then after diving into a world of fantasy and reading 3 Sarah J Maas books very quickly, I decided to choose a completely different book, and I read Holiday in the Hamptons by Sarah Morgan. I love Sarah's writing and I love the romance stories she creates, and this one did not disappoint either. I gave it 4 stars. Again, after that I went straight back to Sarah J Maas and read Queen of Shadows, which was absolutely incredible. I loved this book and obviously I gave this 5 stars as well. The next book I read was another one for the Fours book club that I go to, and that is Lies We Tell Ourselves, and this book had such a powerful message. I absolutely loved this story and I gave it 4 stars. Then after reading that, who do you reckon I went back to? Sarah J Maas. I picked up Empire of Storms and I absolutely loved it. That ending had me in pieces, and now we have to wait. So now I'm going to experience the struggle of having a long wait for a Sarah J Maas book, because the continuation of Empire of Storms does not come out until next year. So we've got a little while to wait, but I'm sure it'll be more than worth it because of how much I love her writing and her books so far. So obviously I gave Empire of Storms 5 stars. I was then sent Wild Like Me by Louise Pentland, and I love Louise. She's a YouTuber. If you don't know her, I'll leave a link to her channel in the description box below as well. And I also have a link for the video review that I did for this book as well, which I'll leave in the description box for you if you want to find out a little bit more. But I really liked this book. It was just a fun, easy read, and I gave it 4 stars. And finally, the last book I read in the month of June is The Heir by Kiera Cass. This is the 4th book in the Selection series, although this one follows their daughter instead. And I really liked this one, but not as much as the first 3 books, so I gave this one 4 stars. Before we go on to the books that I want to try and read over the next 3 months, I thought I would share with you the 2 books that I am currently reading. The first is City of Lost Souls, which is the 5th book in the Mortal Instruments series, and I'm not really enjoying this one. I think I would have been happy just to have read the first 3 books, but again, I'm still going to carry on with it. I'm going to finish the series because I've come this far anyway. And I'm also currently reading The Crown by Kiera Cass, which is the 5th and final book in the Selection series, and I'm really enjoying this so far. I've not got very much left, so I'm really sad that this series is ending, but I've enjoyed this one a lot. So now I'm going to show you 10 books that I want to read over the next 3 months. Obviously, with the rate that I'm getting through books, I'm probably going to read a lot more than these 10, but I'm going to show you 10 that I definitely want to try and read. Well, actually, I'm only going to show you 9 that I want to try and read, and then one of them isn't actually out yet, which you'll probably be able to guess if you've listened to about 8 books that I've just spoken about in this video. So the first book that I want to try and read in the month of July, and I'm going to try and read this very quickly because this is an early release copy that I was sent, so I want to read this before it comes out so I can review it on Readers First. And this is Close Enough to Touch by Colleen Oakley, and this sounds like a really good book. I'm just really excited to read this one. It definitely sounds like my sort of book. Next is The Lie Tree, and I'm reading this for the Foilers Book Club that I go to because this is the book of choice for the month of July, and I'm really excited to read this because I read the first 3 chapters of this book when I was studying children's literature as part of my university degree last year, and I really enjoyed the first 3 chapters that I did read, so I'm going to start it again obviously because I can't remember everything that happened in those first chapters, but I'm really looking forward to reading this one. This is a book that I got out of the library based on a recommendation from another booktuber, and this is The Names They Gave Us. I absolutely love this cover and I'm really looking forward to reading this one. It sounds like a brilliant book. Another book that I really want to read is All the Ways the World Can End. I was sent this book by Readers First, so thank you for that. This book actually isn't out yet, but it sounds absolutely amazing from what I've read on the back, and I can't wait to read it. I'm just going to put these 3 books together in this video clip because I've already mentioned these in my What I Got for My Birthday video, so if you want to hear a little bit more about these 3 books then you can go and watch that video. I'll leave it in the description box for you. But this is Miss You, The Last Piece of My Heart, and The Sun Is Also a Star, and these are 3 books that I am desperate to get to. I'm going to save these for the summer holidays when I have enough time to devote to them. They're absolutely amazing. I love the covers of them. They're just beautiful covers, especially this one. I know it's so simple, but I love it. So I'm really looking forward to reading all 3 of these ones. We also have On the Other Side by Carrie Hope Fletcher. This is a book that my husband bought me a couple of months ago when I was really ill. I caught the norovirus and I was just basically in bed for 3 days, I think. So he went out and bought me a new book thinking that it would cheer me up, which it did, but I haven't actually got around to reading it because I was reading A Court of Mist and Fury at the time and I was fully devoted to that, and then this got put on my shelf and I haven't picked it up yet, so I'm hoping to get around to it in the next 3 months. The final physical book that I have to show you that I want to try and read over the next 3 months is You're the One That I Want by Giovanna Fletcher. If you have seen my very first vlog, which I will leave linked in the description box if you're interested in that video, I met Giovanna at her book signing and this is the book that I got signed. This is the only one of hers as well that I haven't actually read yet. The rest of them are all on my bookshelf over there, but I'm desperate to read this one as well. The final book that obviously I don't have to show you at the moment because it's not out until September is Tower of Dawn by Sarah J Maas, which is technically the 6th book in the Throne of Glass series, but a lot of people are saying it's acting more as a companion novel to Empire of Storms because it's what's going on with Chaol whilst Empire of Storms is going on. So I'm still really looking forward to reading that. Chaol was one of my favourite characters in the first few books, so I'm really interested to find out what's been going on with him. And yeah, that are all of the books that I want to try and read over the next 3 months. So those are all of the books that I have read over the last 3 months, the books that I'm currently reading, and 10 of the books that I want to try and get to over the next 3 months. I hope you've enjoyed this video, even though I'm sure it's been a very, very long one, so thank you if you've stuck around until the end now. I hope you have enjoyed the last few videos that I have done. If there is anything that you would like to request for me to do, then please do let me know. I've got some very exciting videos coming up soon to do with the Zoella book club that has just launched with WH Smith. It is a Zoella and Friends book club this time, so stay tuned for any videos to do with those if you like, and hopefully I will see you again soon. Bye!